hey, if you're a semi to reasonably conscious soul who's in a physical body right now, that's kind of like a big act of trust from the earth in a certain way, because it's like, this is game time.
Welcome to the Seeing in the Dark podcast. My name is Nicole Costeres, and I welcome you in a space to find a deep trust in yourself, your intuition, and the deeper intelligence of life. In this podcast, I offer ways to cultivate your intuitive gifts and dive deep into the mysteries of power, purpose, and soul leadership, so that you can remember your deepest core and let your truest potential come alive. Dark, primal, shamanically wild, crystallized, bright, and subtly intuitive.
Welcome everyone. Today I am here with John Darrell Rue, and I'm super excited to dive in around leadership, power, and purpose. And John, I would love to give you the word to introduce yourself and to tell the listeners and viewers who you are and what you're doing, where you're at in the world.
Yeah, I can do that. Good to be with you. Okay, so I'm passionate about the largest number of people coming online with the life force and the power and the purpose that lives within them as fast as possible, so our planet can update itself to a culture that's based on soul and love. Right?
Boom!
So what I do is dedicated to that. Right. So I co-lead an international spiritual school called Shambhala School, which is dedicated to exactly what I just spoke about, basically. But it's particularly dedicated to, some spiritual paths take us on a journey of deepening into our embodiment, some deepening into our soul. Shambhala School is about deepening into the pure dark light void of spirit. And with the understanding that that is the seed of the one life and its power and its ecstatic love and creativity in the core of every being. And when we bring that online, it catalyzes the emergence of our soul and our embodiment as in service in the world. So I do that. And I can say more about that, but it's a thing. It's a school. And I also lead a smaller community that's growing at the moment called Leadership One, which is basically about, it's dedicated to being an emergent mystery school of power and leadership, basically. So that's a younger project. I also do mentorship work with people, and I run events. Pre-corona, I ran events. I facilitate events. I lead events around topics like leadership, awakening to the life force of the one, trauma, sacred sexuality temples I run, soul work, purpose, these types of things. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I just noticed that like one of the projects that you are offering now around Leadership One is the one that I felt really pulled in towards. And actually our first time that we met one-on-one was in a dream of mine. And we were in a dream where there was a meeting. We were at a big round table and there was a meeting. We were sitting across of each other and there was lots of lightning and thunder and power going across the table. And even before we started recording, we said there's a lot of synchronicities happening. There's a certain recognition. And one of the qualities I was sensing in this dream was this power and leadership. And I feel curious where your passion for power and leadership, specifically these qualities, come from. Is it something that you known from childhood, or like how does this love for power and leadership started for you?
Yeah, I think there's one level which is like what I've come to recognize over time, which is I am power. Like, this is what I am in my core. Like, in my core, I am a pulse of the one life's power. And when I am in that, when I am giving myself to that, that is my nature, that is my essence. That's how this being wants to live and move and be. And that is when I'm in my greatest, when I'm in the pleasure of the one life to be what I am and to have that come through me. It's my essence. And as I look back over time of my life, I realized that it's been clumsy and bumpy for me to kind of understand that, and also to be able to have a just about on a good day integrated enough vehicle to be able to live it in a way which works. Like, so yeah, that's what I'd say. And I'd also say, like, I have a pioneering spirit. Like, I want to be pushing the edges of things. I want to be in breakthrough. I want to be exploring the furthest reaches of the deepest beauty of what it means to be a human being, and together. And I have to push edges in my being. It's like it's what drives me. I want to break through into more life. And like I say, in earlier parts of my life, that was, you know, my teenage years, my early 20s, that was kind of, I didn't know what to do with that energy, and it was kind of misdirected, and I had a bunch of breakthroughs and deep journeys, and I had a bunch of breakdown and destruction in certain ways as well. So I feel like I've been on a long journey of deepening into the soul that I am, and then also coming into harmony and love with the different parts of me, so that they can all work together in this process. But yeah, I mean, I'd also say, like, there are certain, how would I say it? There's certain, the incredible beauty and majesty of what we are has always been clear to me. And I had been heartbroken through my life in various ways from the beginning to see how far we are from living that so often. And that has been confusing to me, and heartbreaking to me, and enraging to me, and depressing to me. And at the same time, I've mostly never lost connection to that. What I know in my core is that we are something profoundly beautiful and extraordinary and special. And it is our destiny to live that, and to build a culture and society that's based on what is the deepest in the human soul. And I want that. I want that. And there's nothing there's nothing that feels more ethically right in my life to dedicate myself to. And there's nothing that turns me on more than how we can pioneer into that, especially at this time in history where I kind of feel like, hey, if you're a semi to reasonably conscious soul who's in a physical body right now, that's kind of like a big act of trust from the earth in a certain way, because it's like, this is game time. Like, this is the time, right? This is where we get to be in the collective decision about what we break through and update into, because what we have at the moment is coming to break down.
Yeah. So I love when you started to share about power, and I would love if you could share a bit on, because my experience is when I talk about power with people, there can be a lot of misconceptions about power and leadership, because it's such a mess around power and leadership in the world, you know? Yeah. So I would love if you can maybe touch upon maybe the difference of the power and leadership that you are talking about and that you are passionate about, and the power and leadership that we can currently see in a lot of the world leaders, in a lot of the structures that we currently have in our civilization.
Sure. Yeah, it's super important, because power for some people is just even the word is triggering.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is what I call true power. And true power is a frequency of source, and it's not dependent upon someone being in a particular position that somebody else has given them the permission to stand in, right? The example I give sometimes is like, think of the journey of love that two people often, if they journey deeply in relationship as a pathway, two people will often come to a point where they realize that love isn't something that they generate between them, but love is actually an all-pervasive reality that their relationship participates in. The same is true of power. Like power isn't something which is generated by a position. Power is a frequency of source. Like power is a quality of the one life. Power is already here. Like just like love is already here, just like the intelligence of the one life that orders the cosmos in all of these extraordinary ways that it works, that's already here. That's not dependent upon scientists looking at it or finding it. The sense not power isn't dependent upon putting someone in a suit and a tie and in a position of apparent, authority in some political building somewhere. Like power is already here. It's part of what we are. It's part of what vibrates through everything. It's said in Buddhism that there's an infinity of Buddha qualities that live through everything, right? And one of those qualities is love. Like there is an ecstatic love that mystics or people who go deep into their spiritual practice at a certain point realize is here already, and is our destiny, our invitation to live. And wisdom, intelligence, there's compassion, power is one of these. And my experience is like there's different types of beings, and they have different destinies, and they have different typologies in a certain way, and some are more called to some of these and some more called to others. So yeah, just like in a relationship, when two people are really disconnected from the reality that love is already all pervasive and their relationship participates in it rather than generates it, we can get, I have gotten in all sorts of messes when we believe that our connection to that love is dependent upon the other person and how things go with that person, right? Mm-hmm. But the same is true with power. Like we get ourselves in a mess when we believe that power is dependent upon someone having it and other people not having it, and some people being in positions where they're given power by other people who claim to have it and are told they have it. And that's where we get into this whole thing of like, that's why power is triggering as a word for a lot of people, because when we're operating in that frequency where we're disconnected fundamentally from true power, then power becomes something that some people hoard and some people try and take back, and some people want to go into rebellion, and some people want to keep it, and some people want to fight for it, and some people don't even want to talk about it, and some people are like, the power itself is just bad, right? All of that, in my view, is a symptom of being disconnected from true power, because true power cannot be given, it cannot be taken. It's already here. It's a quality of what we are. And if you're in contact with that, it's a different thing. So that's the power I'm speaking about. And that's what leadership has to be based in fundamentally, because leadership, for me, leadership is really just about channeling power. Like, so it's like, and how do we do that? And we have abundant examples in the world of where people, and we ourselves in our own lives in certain ways channel power in ways which are not to our deepest dignity, so that's the journey.
So I noticed a few questions, but one of them is like, if someone is listening now or watching now and they feel like curious about, I would love to dive deeper into this true power, what do you feel are some of the important aspects or ways to access more into that?
Okay, so there's different levels of power as well, right? And one level of power that it's super important and it's good work for people to find their way into claiming back is their personal power, right? So it's like claiming back their ability to operate as a boundaried, self-connected, autonomous individual sovereign being, right?
Yes.
Hell yes, like that's important for all of us. Then there's like soul power in a certain way, right? And soul power for me comes from being aligned with and in the flow of soul purpose. Like when we are in the flow of and aligned with and expressing our soul purpose, because we've been basically through a process of discovery and unfolding of what that is, then we are empowered. We are in power on a soul level in a certain way. One way you could talk about that is like, I used to do a bunch of purpose work, and sometimes we talk about the difference between default purpose and authentic purpose. So default purpose comes from outside in. It's like It's the stuff that we believe that we should be doing because people have told us we should do it, whether it's our family or our culture or whatever. I should be a dentist because I come from a family who's been generations of dentists or whatever, right?
And I feel this is so alive on the planet. So many people are on this default purpose.
Yeah, most people. Most people. But authentic purpose comes from within outwards. It's not because someone told me something or because I saw something in a movie or because my family's done a lot of stuff for a long time. It's like something has been revealed in me that wants to come out, and it might be something totally different to, you know, what I've been told, or it might be the same, you know, who knows, but it comes from within outwards. So that's like soul power. But then for me, like deep root true power is the power of our spirit core, and that's where we are a tear and opening to the presence of the one life, to the one life that lives and breathes through everything. And that, to open to that, requires deep surrender. There has to be, that's a journey I love being on with people. It's like there has to be a willingness to surrender even your identity, to surrender my temporary illusion that John really is at the center of things, you know, and actually kind of open to the one life that lives and vibrates and is roaring through everything, revealing itself and coming online with its will and its creativity and its ecstatic current through this life, so that this life is fully lived. And that's all of these levels have deep vulnerability journeys to go through. And so I'd say like those explorations are the ones that are important for power.
Yeah. And I feel like touching upon the one, to go from default purpose to soul purpose, I feel like one of the things required in there is courage, because I feel like looking back at my shift from like really stepping into my soul purpose, it took some courage to really go there, you know, because it's scary, and it asks us also, that asks for a big surrender into the unknown, and trusting that something deeper will have your back, something deeper will catch you.
Yeah, for sure. That's, I mean, I've come to perceive that there's actually like a collective trauma that we all carry a piece of, which is around what's going to happen if I really step out to really bring what wants to come through me, and I give myself to that first, rather than what the tribe kind of, I believe the tribe expects of me.
Yes.
Like, am I going to get lynched? Am I going to, you know, and to be fair, there's an intelligence in that trauma, because we have a few good examples of people who kind of stepped out to bring what wanted to come through them, and it didn't go so well in the end, you know, for those people. Like, though they, you know, produce great change on the planet. And the way I describe it as well is like, to me, there's a whole frequency of the earth field, right, that operates in harmony with itself, that operates in deep harmony, wisdom, intelligence, synchronicity, grace, yes, right? But then there's a whole frequency of the earth field that does not operate in harmony with itself at the current time, and that's basically where the majority of human culture lives. And because it's not connected to that frequency of the earth field that does operate in harmony, people are on survival. Basically, it's the law of the jungle, basically, in that. So it's like everything, our laws, our expectations of each other, our norms, they're all based on, this is how you survive in a fundamentally disconnected world, right? And the most apparently developed nations are nations who have the best systems of, this is how you survive in a fundamentally disconnected world, right? But our souls already live in that frequency of the earth field that is in harmony with itself, right? So when we give ourselves to our soul, I'm building the bridge, I'm making the jump within myself from that part of me that lives in a disconnected world to that part of me that lives in a connected, grace-filled world, right? So I'm making a jump then into a part of me that's part of an interconnected field of intelligence and synchronicity and grace and purpose. But for people who don't know that exists, and for parts of me that don't know that exists, they can be like, what are you doing? Like that is a crazy, like that's a crazy thing that you're like, that doesn't go anywhere. It's like, you know, you're just jumping off a cliff. Like, why would you give up these great ways that we can help you plug into survival in a disconnected world and do something so woo-woo and crazy as like trying to jump off a cliff into something that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
However, those of us who've made that jump, and those parts of me that have made that jump, know that the other side does exist. And actually, it's a deeper safety that's there than even the kind of real world, disconnected world safety, because it's not the kind of safety where I can tell you, yeah, Nicole, I can tell you exactly what my paycheck's going to be in 2 years, and you know how much I'm going to get paid and where I'm going to be working. It's not that type of safety, right? But I've learned in the 10 years I've been living how I live, I don't have the same assurances as that world in real world ways, but I have, as long as I live from my alignment, I'm supported, and I'm in a continually unfolding process of grace and interconnection and meeting exactly the right people at the right time that open up incredible opportunities, and like meeting you, and you know, so it's like, that's what's possible in that vulnerable but courageous surrendered transition into soul purpose, which is scary, but also has you enter an entirely different frequency of life and what's possible.
Yeah, and my experience also that it's a gradual process, right? I love how you say, like, when you make the jump and when parts of me make the jump, because I feel like the first step for me was almost like a decision to trust in something deeper. And then after that decision, there were all these parts of me that were still like, oh, hell no, you know, I'm not going to go there. So I feel like that I think for me and for most people, it's a gradual process of landing, of rooting deeper in soul and rooting deeper in a trust that something deeper is guiding us. And I would say for me also what was really important that was community, like having people around me that knew that was true, you know, that would really strengthen my surrender and my trust in that deeper intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think for everyone, it's a step-by-step process and stage-by-stage process. And I think that's like part of the intelligence of it in a certain way as well, because there's a compassion to that, which is like, okay, just piece by piece, step by step, you know, life is kind of ushering, but there's also a fierceness to it in a certain way, because on the other side, once you've made that jump with certain parts of you, life and basically your soul, my soul, will ask for more.
Yes.
And more.
Yes.
And more and more, till it's all the way through, more and more and more. And for me, it's like, that whole process straddles, like, it will ask for, first of all, it'll ask for your commitment, you know, it'll ask for your commitment, and then it will ask for your sense of direction in life, and it will ask for more of your time and your energy. But over time, it will ask for your heart, and it will ask for your consciousness. It will ask for your personal healing journey. It will ask for the transformation of your relationships. It will ask for the transformation of your relationship to home, to community, to land. You know, it will ask for, you know, all of your trauma, like to be offered into a process of deep healing. And it will ask for your money eventually, you know, like, and it will, and all of these steps take us deeper and deeper and deeper into basically parts of us that more and more strongly and instinctually don't believe that love is real, and don't believe that soul is real, and that are heavily interwired into the kind of the disconnected survival's just all we've got kind of paradigm on more and more animal levels. And you know, and that's where there's kind of deep shifts possible in the path, and deep healing that can happen more and more of the way through, that these parts of us surrender and learn to open into the fact that this has always been a sacred earth, This has always been a sacred life. There's always been love, has always been here. Soul has always been here, and we have a choice. You know? And thankfully, life is compassionate and in its fierceness, in how the steps by we make that choice.
Yeah, beautiful. And I also feel like I sometimes get comments that people will tell me like, yeah, but you are like, you don't have any children, or you don't have any like responsibility, so you can do it. But actually you have a family, you have a son. And I do feel, I don't feel we have to go very, very deep into the direction of, but I do feel I would love to hear your experience of how the deeper intelligence also moves through you in connection to family and being a parent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about our family being based in soul. I'm passionate about that. You know, I mean, who of us was truly welcomed in as the soul that we are, you know, in coming into this life? I've come to perceive very clearly from the purpose work, the soul work, the trauma work that I've done with myself and many other people, that the degree to which we were not welcomed in as a soul is the degree of trauma that we carry, because we are souls. It's who we are. And the degree to which we come into a world that doesn't see that and doesn't welcome that is the degree of at least the beginning of the trauma that we carry. So I'm passionate about, like, I mean, for me, it's part of the soul all the way through journey that, yeah, if we can do family in that way, and if I can relate to my son in that way from the beginning, like I got super excited this morning because his mother came in, she was sleeping, she came into the room, and he and I were watching spoken word rap, right? Spoken word hip hop. Yeah, I was showing him this art, and she was like, okay, you guys are, you know, you chose to do that this morning. And I was like, I am like excited about the possibility that, like, there's so much we can show him. Like, he has destiny seeds of his soul, like, ready to go, right? And I'm like super excited to like show him this thing or show him that thing, or that we find out we have this experience and something just is like sparked in him, because that's what he's supposed to be doing, or at least that's what he's supposed to be learning or unfolding in himself at that stage of his path. Like, so yeah, like I'm passionate to relate to him that way and excited to relate to him that way, and I hope to God we increasingly relate to children that way. I think we've got to relate to children that way, and let them be children, of course, and go through a couple of decades at least of just personality unfolding and development and so on, so they have that. And but also those soul seeds they're there in all of us from the beginning, and they can be supported. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love to see you light up when you share about your son and your family. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I notice it relaxes me also, because I can sometimes have like, oh my God, this feeling around becoming a parent. So I feel like, yeah, it's beautiful to hear you about this. I feel it's important also to have people parent in this way.
Yeah, and I every parent out there will be on the same page with me when I also acknowledge it's so hard. It's so hard, and it's like exhausting and tiring. And like, my friends before I became a parent who were already parents, they said to me, like, it's the most wonderful thing and it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I totally get it. It's like, it's so hard, it's all consuming, it's an acid trip that never ends. But it's amazing at the same time. And there was a teaching that I read once where some like really profound kind of masters said something like, there's no better sphere of training than, you know, just the day-to-day of family and being tired together and working out how you still stay in alignment and, you know, moving the feelings that you need to move with each other. And, you know, and my commitment, like, I feel like I had a kind of little initiation from my soul into fatherhood before he was born. And my commitment in that was like, I can't commit to always totally being in alignment. I'm not there yet, but what I can commit to is I will always come back to love. I will always come back to love with him. I will do everything in my power to come back to love with him if we ever fall out of love in any way, and so yeah, it's and I can feel, I've seen parents as well, as far as the soul journey is concerned, we initiate our children, but our children also initiate us. I've seen they are a force in our life even before they're born, which turns things on in us. Like I have a kind of energy in my body that I never had before he was born. Like I never would have been able to survive the amount of sleep that I've lived on for the last year and a half on the energy reserves that I had before he was born. Something got switched on. I've heard other parents say the same thing, but something on a purpose level gets switched on as well. Like I've seen that with other parents and some of my friends. And yeah, like there's a drive, there's a fire, another level that comes online that is, that I found parenthood has brought me.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I noticed like here in Amsterdam, we are in a full lockdown that got lengthened for another, I don't know how many weeks. And I just noticed the part where you said like, when you become a parent, there is this initiation happening. And I've heard you speak also about like the global crisis also being an opportunity for global initiation. And yeah, can you share a bit about that? Like, I feel like a lot of people are afraid in these lockdowns, or they do feel like it can be some kind of initiation, but they maybe not sure how. So can you share a bit on that as well?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I'll just be transparent and raw. Like for me, this is that. Like, and I think there's something which is a gift for. There's a certain pattern to the spiritual path, right? That even though your version of it is different to my version of it, and we have our different surface features, there's an underlying structure to it which is actually very similar. Like and it's shared. There's certain stages and processes and things we're asked to face and integrate and work with, which are shared between us. And for those people who've been through, it's very common for individuals to go through stages of the path where we are brought to our knees. And got it. Yeah, know what you're talking about, John. And like, so I have a friend, he says, everyone's first teacher is suffering. Yeah, like it's through crisis that we are brought to our souls, and or that we are willing to listen to that quiet voice that's probably always been there, but we've been too busy to spend time with, and we've been more interested in the other stuff. So I used to really struggle. I didn't want to accept this reality for a long time, but I came to accept it at a certain point, which is that most people come to their soul through pain. And whether it's a health issue or whether it's emotional pain or with some kind of loss or whatever it is, like pain takes us deeper. Pain has us willing to look at things we weren't willing to look at before. Pain has us willing to put on the table to negotiate stuff we weren't willing to negotiate before, because we're actually quite happy to just do our personality thing, thanks. Right? So those of us as individuals who've been through that process and know its fruit, that we know that even when we were in it, it felt scary. And is this really something sacred and intelligent that's happening, or am I just falling off here? Like, is this just something going bad? Like, even though that might have been the case in certain parts of us, once you've been through that once, or even once you've been through cycles like that twice, or even 3 times, you kind of get it. Like, you get that this is a way life works, and it's not so scary anymore. And you get what's being invited of you, and you get that this is an initiatory process that that will take you deeper and probably will be uncomfortable in various ways, but you will be freer, more embodied, more connected to who you truly are, more in harmony with life, more aligned with who you truly are and living that than you were before.
Yeah.
For those of us who've been through something like that, it's, in my view, quite easy to see that that's what the collective is having the opportunity to go through now, right? To me, it feels like the Earth's alarm clock is ringing, right? Like we've had enough time to do what we've been doing and to take forward a society that, yes, has brought a deeper quality of life and, you know, greater opportunities to survive in a fundamentally disconnected world, like than in recorded history. And we should be like legitimately grateful for that. And time's up. Like that whole kind of doing it on the basis of exploiting each other in the earth thing, time's up. Like doing it on the basis of being fundamentally disconnected from our hearts and with each other, time's up. Like doing it on the basis of doing, you know, being fundamentally disconnected from the truth of who we are as souls, time's up. Like, so that's what I perceive. And I think for the collective is having that same experience that those individuals who've been through this process already have when they're in it, which is like, is this something meaningful and going to lead to somewhere good, or is everything just going super bad? I don't quite know. Shit, I'm scared. You know? But yeah, I feel very clearly that this is a hugely important, incredibly valuable, deeply tragic in many ways and full of grief. Like, I don't mean to, you know, gloss over the loss that people will be experiencing. I have friends who've lost family members in this process. It's like, that's not to be taken lightly. But I also do, I feel like I can hold both, that it's tragic and full of grief in many ways. And I can, like, my heart like breaks when I read a story the other day of another person talking about their grandparent who's just been kept by themselves, you know, in a hospital, or being kept by themselves in their nursing home or whatever. And just like, it's heartbreaking to kind of imagine so many people in that circumstance, and just like, you know, and I also feel for the collective, this is something which is gonna open our hearts to each other in a deeper way, and have us willing to let go of things it's important for us to let go of, and open to each other, and change the way we do things in a bunch of ways, so we are more living from what's truly important and who we truly are.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And I feel like for the ones who are listening and viewing, if for the ones who are more rooted in soul already, they feel like, okay, I feel quite on purpose. I feel like I'm receiving this global situation as a gift, and I have already a sense of how to unpack that. Because I noticed this in me in moments that I feel like, am I doing enough? This is the question that I can sometimes notice in myself, you know, where I feel like I am like following my resonance. I follow that guidance in each moment, and still I can sometimes feel, is this enough? And I feel curious, like how that is for you, and also, yeah, what you have to say on that.
Yeah, I think it's a super rich question. I think no one can know but you. And it's a really fertile place to feel like, what is that truly right and aligned space between I'm not really showing up with what I know is right, and I'm actually taking on too much responsibility in a way that sets things a bit out of whack. Like, and people will have different tendencies at different stages of their path. Some people might be more in the, actually, if I really did listen to that deep voice in me, I would be stepping up and stepping in a bit more. And certain other people might be more along the lines of like, oh my God, it's all up to me.
Yeah, I usually call it either inferior to your flow or superior.
Yeah.
Either holding back and doubting, or like trying to push and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, like I went through a whole thing some years ago where life strongly taught me the lessons of not trying to take too much responsibility, and that actually that that's really based on fear and distrust as much as not taking enough responsibility is based on fear and distrust.
Yeah.
Like what I had to learn in that process was that my tendency to try and take too much responsibility meant that it was coming from a place where I didn't really trust my brothers and my sisters to also show up. Like, and I didn't really trust life in a certain way. And I took too much on myself in that, and something was out of whack and my body deeply suffered because of it. So I went through some very intense health processes, which were also just part of the path and certain parts of it, I believe. So, but I know there was something there that I learned around finding that place where from trust and from a sense of connection to the community, like it's a wonderful, truthful reality that there's a huge number of soul surrendered, soul dedicated, on like purpose online people on the planet who are giving themselves to what wants to come through them in service and the unfolding of a new culture.
Yeah.
We're not alone, and it's what I really had to come to with that was like that we hold this together. The covenant, the agreement that we have is that we hold this together, and if we do hold it together, we can do this. And because it's not my role to hold what you're holding, and it's not your role to hold what I'm holding, and I couldn't do what you were doing, and you couldn't do what I was doing. It would set us out of whack, and we'd lose energy, and things would just not quite work in the same way, But if each of us is supported to find our place, and that's, to me, that's one of the things that purpose really does. Like, purpose is a living energy. Purpose is part of the life force that lives within us, right? I call purpose is like the eros of the soul for me. It's like, it's what turns your soul on, right?
I love that.
It has purpose has a self-organizing quality to it. It puts you in your place.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always been like, okay, well, my focus is how do I support as many people to be online in their purpose as possible, because I trust when that's the case, they'll find their place, and they don't need me to tell them their place, and they don't need you to tell them their place. Then we can start to have a ripple, a wave of that moving through more and more people, and then we can really hold this whole process together. So
I love that.
So each of us will have that. It's like we have to be very honest with ourselves about like, where's that place where I'm really showing up for what's right, and I'm also coming from trust rather than fear.
Yeah. And yeah, so we've been speaking quite a bit now on like that shift from the personal to the soul, and really anchoring deeper in the stability and rooting deeper in living from soul. But at the beginning, you were also naming the different levels. So I know you're very passionate about anchoring deeper into spirit, and maybe you can share a bit about that shift for the ones also who feel more anchored in soul already, just to have a sense with what you mean when you talk about being more anchored in spirit and that next evolution.
Yeah, sure. I realize like some people use these terms in the same way. Some people even talk about soul and spirit as the same thing. So if I just basically say, like, for me, soul is the deep kind of spiritual entity that you are, really, that's deeper than your mental, emotional, and physical conditioning. Like, you've inherited a body. Like, I've inherited a body as I've come to this life, and both from my own path, but also from my ancestors and from my parents and from my culture. It has a bunch of wiring, and it likes this and doesn't like that, and gets pissed at this situation, and whatever. Like, that's part of the conditioning of this thing, and likes this food or whatever. Like, who I am is deeper than that as a soul. Like, who I am is I'm the journeying being that's operating through this thing, like, and hopefully coming to more and more alignment and harmony with it.
Yeah.
But there's still a sense of, even in soul, there's still a sense of this being and that being. right? Whereas spirit is the one life. Like spirit is the one ecstatic pulse of life, which is deeper than me and you. It's deeper than an individual I. It's the one life that lives and breathes through everything. And yeah, the journey from, just like there's a great, powerful, courageous, vulnerable journey from kind of our personal self into our soul, there's an equally so another version of that from soul into spirit. And it's profoundly vulnerable and exhilarating in a certain way, because it's the way I know when I'm in contact with people who are a yes to that journey is what I call, it's like their Thanatos switch has gone, like the Thanatos switch in their soul. Like Freud talked about Thanatos as the death drive. Like he talked about Eros and Thanatos. Eros was like the life drive and Thanatos was like the death drive. And actually it's both. When people are ready for this, when they want this, it's not just the Eros switch, but it's the Thanatos switch has gone as well. And this is like something in them is hungry for their own end. And I don't mean the end of their physical body. I mean the end of this individual, separate self experience that perceives itself to be at the center of things. It's like, that's a fantastic, wonderful journey that we get to go on. And it's also, the way I describe it, it's a chrysalis for God. It's a cocoon for God. It's like there's something deeper that's unfolding a vehicle, that's unfolding something that can take the full force of the one life. And the unfoldment of an individual self and its preferences and path and even its soul purpose, right, is a journey, and it's a phase of the journey which is a step towards something else.
Even the soul has, I feel, even the soul on some layers has preference.
Yeah, for sure. Like we've had our soul paths, and if you get esoteric with it, we've had our soul incarnations, and we've had our soul tendencies. And my view is that actually souls, even up until a certain stage of the path, experience themselves a bit more on the masculine side, or a bit more on the feminine side, or a bit more on the light side, or a bit more on the matter side. And there's tendencies like this, but that's not the one life. Like the one life does have different frequencies. It has a power frequency. Some are more on the love frequency. Some are more on the intelligence and abundance side. But John is not driving that. Like it's the ecstatic current of life itself. And there's a profound journey of deepening into that, because you start to realize, when that starts to come online in you realize it has will. Like this isn't just a peaceful armchair to sit in as you watch it all unfold. It's like this life has will. Like it wants to open itself to itself. It wants to activate itself with more power, with more love. It wants to remember itself and vibrate with itself through everything. And the death drive is such that, there's two types of people in my experience who show up with that. And one is like they want it because they just want out of the suffering. Like they just like, actually, I heard you got to do a way out, John. And like if you could help me out with that would be great. Thanks, because this is really hard, right? That one doesn't work out quite so well. But the authentic one is like, I know there is more life. I know there is a life more exhilarating and full than anything that I could touch on this side of that death, on the other side of it, like on the other side of jumping and giving myself to that and surrendering myself into being radically penetrated and opened by a life that is the core of what I truly am, and having the essence of my being remembering itself as that which is holding and penetrating everything right now, vibrating in ecstasy through everything right now, and just wanting to amplify more of itself through everything right now. There is a life more exhilarating than anything I could know if I did not give myself into that death. So that's the that's the opportunity of that path. And we're ready for what we're ready for, and every stage of the journey is good.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I feel like personally, if I look at my life, it really asks me to release that will of my own.
Mm.
Like even very, very simple example, I had a collaboration with someone planned this year, and
Mm.
it's work that deeply resonates with me, you know? It's work that is also deeply aligned with my soul purpose, and yet something deeper said no.
Yeah.
Something deeper said no. And I didn't know what was my yes, but I only knew that this was no. And so it asks for another part of me for a deeper part of my will to die and to
Yeah.
trust again in something deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd actually say like that's what you describe as a fundamental way that spirit current opens. Like I know for myself, it's been like one of the most powerful practices I've had is like, like an act of will in myself. Like I surrender to that and I will not move for anything else. Like, if there's anything else that shows up in my path and in my life, opportunities that come that is anything less than that, no. You know, and I find you kind of enter into like this mating dance with the universe in a certain way where it's like, you know, what I've experienced is like if I really hold that, and it's been my work over the last years, if I hold that, then the universe will bring me something and be like, what about this?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like 60% aligned or something, or 70% aligned. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And then the universe will show, what about this? And it's like 80% aligned.
Yeah.
No, you know, and then I'm like, what about this? Like, and it's kind of like 90% aligned. It's like a testing process, right?
Yes.
But my experience of this is it's such an extraordinary path. It's like it asks for all of you.
Yeah.
And if you're in 40%, you will be met 40%.
Yes.
Right. But if you're in 100%, you'll be met 100%.
Yeah.
And that's a test, right? Just that in there is like, because and that the test is managing fear fundamentally, because like it's asking, you know, okay, well, what happens in me if I'm willing to put everything, if I'm willing to give everything, all my trust to this thing which is wanting to radically emerge within me, but it's still in a beginning process. And you know, it's just like I said earlier, the transition from a disconnected world to a connected world. This is the transition from the connected world to the radically divine one that's already here, you know. And it's like, and there are parts of us that are like, hell yeah, but then there's also like parts of us that are like, oh my god, no, like, you know. Like, what does that even mean? Like, you know, what is that going to ask of me? And that's some of the work that I do with people in Shambhala school. It's like, how do you work with your yes and your no and actually welcome both, because they both have deep wisdom. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. So the final question I feel is, what do you feel the world would look like if we would all live from this one life, from this one intelligence? And maybe it's some flavors, because maybe we cannot even see what the world would look like, but what are some flavors that you can sense in there?
Yeah.
With the openness for that to change and evolve over time as well.
So I mean, first of all, I'd say that my mind has no idea. Like, and my heart and my soul, my heart and my soul know that there's just one here. Like, my heart and my soul know that there is one presence and one life that is of a profound, unspeakable level of holiness, that is the root source of life and beingness through everything. And I know, and I can feel that it would be a culture where we see that in each other's eyes, like where that is what meets itself. And you know, when we put our bodies together, where we have systems that amplify the transmission and intelligence and power and love of that through the way that we relate to the earth and the way that we relate to each other. And beyond that, I don't know. I think, you know, what this is for me is that when you start to get into that area, it's like the way I put it is there is a purpose that, in my experience, this earth is here for, that is on the other side of us establishing what so far have been the most utopian visions for a society that most human beings have dared dream of. Right? So most of us through time, the most utopian visions that we've had for our world are basically that we just live in harmony with each other in the earth, like that we're just not violent towards each other in the earth, right? Well, on a planetary level, that's basically just the same as having a reasonably integrated personality, right? On an individual level. But on an individual level, we know like that isn't the end of the path. Like there's a lot more. That's a great foundation for a lot more that as long as we're really just in personal development, we can't even imagine like the beauty and the profundity and the beauty and the glory and the intelligence and the wisdom and the compassion and the ecstasy and the love that even just soul is waiting to open the door for into our lives, right? I sit like at times I sit like I sit and open myself to the profound sacredness that just being sat in my soul allows me to experience, vibrating in the room I'm in, with the bodies I'm with, like with their hearts beating, and and I feel my privilege, like I feel my profound privilege that this is not strange to me, and yet in earlier stages of my life, when I felt profoundly alone or depressed or afraid or like disconnected, and if somebody would have told me, like there will come a day, John, where you can just open the door within yourself and you experience the most sublime love just vibrating through the fields that you're a part of as a normal part of your experience, in which everything is always safe. I don't know what my reaction would have been, right? But the most utopian visions that we have so far, for me, they're just the beginning. That's like a basically integrated planetary personality that is more and more soul connected. On the basis of that, to be honest, my true knowing is that there's a cosmic destiny that waits for us that we haven't even begun to imagine yet. Right? That we have a role in something much, much bigger than us just sorting our shit out together, on a planet like that. There's something so much vaster that awaits us on the other side of this initiation, and the ones that will follow it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I really love the words you've shared today and the energy that you've shared with all of us today. And if people feel inspired by you and they would like to know more about you and your work, where can they find you?
They can find me at I have a website called Leadership One. So I think it's leadership1.com. Maybe we can put links to this.
Yeah, we can put a link.
There's also, I have a website, awakeningineden.life, awakeningineden.life, all one word. There's also Shambhala School, shambhalaschool.org. And there's the Facebook groups for Leadership One and also for Shambhala School, and that's Shambhala School Global. So yeah, you can find me there. And pleasure to be with you, Nicole. Thank you for this time. It's good to go deeper in the field that we have with each other and get to feel that more. And I really appreciate what you're holding with this for the people that connect to your work.
Thank you for being here. You can learn more about Nicole and Women of Ancient Futures by downloading her free meditation, Melting into Your Most Free and Alive Self, on her website, womenofancientfutures.com. This meditation guides you into a meeting with a parallel version of you that is already deeply embodying her core qualities and can offer a transmission on the next evolution of who you are becoming. So, if you want to receive a powerful guided meditation to connect to your most free and alive self, receive inspiration, support, and guidance from her, and return to a deep connection with the potential that lives inside of you, go to womenofancientfutures.com and get direct access to this welcome gift.